Off Script with Trish Glose, intimate interviews and fun conversations with interesting people. And in front of my mic today is Vince Vidrine from Irvine Roberts, the winemaker, and we're on the road.
We are.
You're my guinea pig. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you for having us, or being here, rather.
Yeah, I know. So I had I want to call it a nightmare about this last night. I was so anxious that I wouldn't forget anything.
Mm-hmm.
I dreamt about doing the podcast. I forgot the microphones. I forgot my little memory cards. I forgot everything. We couldn't set up the shot. So, but yeah, thank you for being patient. It took us a little bit of time. As you can see behind us, this is the gorgeous view here at Irvine Roberts. It's a little smoky.
It's a little smoky.
Yeah, you said too bad you weren't here last week. I know.
It's been a beautiful summer. It's been gorgeous.
So, Vince Vidrine, where are you from originally?
I'm from Tacoma, Washington.
Washington boy.
That's right.
Grew up with siblings?
I have a twin brother.
Do you?
And that's it.
A twin.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a few twins on this podcast, actually. Yeah. And I always ask this question. I'm going to ask it again. I don't care. Do you guys have weird twin things that you do?
No.
Nothing?
No.
Come on.
You know, like, I think the definition of, like, twin telepathy is just, like, that nature-nurture thing that's, like, parallel. So you end up thinking and processing the world in the same way.
Okay.
So, yeah, like, the finishing of the sentences.
You do that?
Yeah, we do that.
Okay.
We do, we know what each other's thinking on, like, certain reactions. And we have the worst, we have, like, the same bad jokes.
Ooh, that's good.
Which I'm not telling here. So.
Sorry, I'm playing with the microphones. I did interview one gal who has a twin, and she said she would start humming a song, or in her head. Wait, maybe it was one of them. They would start humming a song in their head, and then their twin would start humming it out loud. The same song, like pick up at the same spot.
Oh wow,
that's creepy.
That is weird.
That's like alien stuff.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah, we're not that weird. We're weird.
So you think. What's your twin's name?
Cheney.
Cheney.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yep.
Like as in Dick?
Like Dick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cheney?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a reason for that? Is like a family name?
No, they found it in like a book, you know.
Interesting.
The meaning was really interesting and sort of prescient. Like it means in Old French, man of the woods. And he in college studied forestry.
No way.
Yeah.
So your parents essentially said, this is what you're going to do. You don't know it yet.
Something like that. They also said, like, don't get married too young. And, you know, neither of us are married. So
good.
Yeah.
That's good advice. Did you guys get along?
We're best of friends now. Growing up, we definitely had, you know, a little angst, let's call it. But actually, we ended up going to the same college, and it was then we realized how much we really, like, cared about each other. We lived separately, and then it was like, let's hang out, let's do stuff, let's eat pizza and drink beer together. Nice.
What did parents do?
My dad was a doctor. He was a surgeon, and my mother was an accountant.
Nice. Is he retired now?
He's retired.
Surgeon, like general surgeon, or?
Urological.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so like vasectomies?
He's probably done a bunch of those.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's seen a lot of male body parts.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good for Dad.
He found surgery and human anatomy and systems very interesting. But then also, like, he's a very like emotionally connected guy.
Nice.
Like, so I think, like, the humanity part of the science was something that really worked with his identity.
I like that. So what were you like in high school then? Were you a big nerd?
No, not really. No. I hung out with nerds and athletes.
Did you get into trouble?
Yeah, a little bit.
Good.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's healthy.
Yeah. We both got into trouble. We were, my mother would probably kill me, but we always looked. My brother and I always looked older than everybody.
Okay.
And we could go, like, purchase beer at a store.
You don't have to whisper it. You're a man. You're a grown ass man now. You can say we bought beer
That's
underage.
Right. We bought the beer for the parties.
Right.
Yeah, I know.
But
we also did well in school and sports, and we were, we had. I say we, but yeah, I mean, like, I think it's, like, weird to tell people, like, I enjoyed high school.
I enjoyed high school.
Okay.
I mean, there are parts of it that I hated.
Yeah,
but for the most part.
I think being that age is just kind of a pain in the ass.
Oh, it's the worst. It's the worst. And you guys went to the same college, you and your brother?
We did. We went to Oregon State University.
Oh, you came all the way down to Oregon
to
go to school. Why OSU?
So I don't know. I kind of personally I didn't know what I wanted to do. I think I was very focused on liberal arts, and I thought I was going to go to a small school, and then I had like a last minute freak out, like I'm just going to end up an English teacher, or something like that. You know, I'm going to end up like just routed into one thing, and
because you didn't know what you wanted to do.
Something like that,
okay.
You know. And so to me, like that answer, you know, which is not true, not necessarily true, definitely not true for everybody, was to go to a bigger school with lots of options. And also thrown into the mix was the athletic factor, and I ended up playing soccer on the soccer team there.
Oh, at OSU. Okay.
And then my brother wanted to study forestry, and they have a very good forestry program. And he also wanted to row on the crew team.
Wow. So you guys were really like smarty pants, but then athletes too at the same time.
We're like pretty good at most stuff. Not not excellent
right.
at many things.
That's a good way to be. Just ride the wave, right? A little under the radar. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
So at some point though, in college, does the light bulb ever go off? Do you figure out what you want to be when you grow up?
Well, so all the buying of the beer, like, got me interested in why beers taste different.
Yeah.
And so I lived next to this store, and it was kind of before it was cool for every store to have lots of different craft beers, and this store had so many beers. It was so cool. And I immediately got drawn to this while everyone was going to the Bud Light cooler.
Sure.
I was like, what's going on here? And so I started homebrewing, tasting all the beers.
Really?
And then homebrewing.
How old were you?
20.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the homebrew supply store that's in Corvallis Homebrew Supply, still just one of the best community, it's like a hub of people who are interested in fermented things.
They would sell you. Do you have to be 21 to get homebrew stuff?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. What kind of beers at this age stuck out to you the most?
It was kind of right before the whole IPA thing was just blowing up.
Yeah.
And so I think I was the only one in my friend group that enjoyed IPAs, but I'd say actually porters were something that were really kind of fascinating to me, like that kind of richness that you could get from it, and the textural. It wasn't just about bitterness, but it was the broader textural, possibilities. So that was cool.
That's surprising to me. I mean, I would just think a 20-year-old palate wouldn't be, I don't want to say sophisticated enough, but I mean, IPA is a big beer.
Yeah.
And some IPAs are bigger than others, and a lot of people don't like IPAs because they're just hoppy and some say bitter. I think they're delicious and wonderful. But
I've seen you at the beer store.
I've seen you at the beer store. We bonded actually when we shot. It was at the time, I don't remember. It wasn't Grape to Glass, but when we shot that thing here, I mean, you and we're supposed to be talking about wine, and we just ended up talking about beer the whole time. And hey, did you try this beer? And did you try this beer?
It happens.
So at this point, are you thinking I want to make beer when I grow up?
Maybe. No, I don't know. To be honest with you, I was still exploring.
Just having fun?
I was still, I was taking, so I got this idea. I just take classes in every different department,
Okay.
And kind of right at that time that I came across in the food science department, Intro to Beer, Wine, and Spirits, 251, and there was a beer portion, a spirits portion, and a wine portion. And it was actually the wine portion that it was that aha moment. I mean, I remember sitting in that classroom just like, oh my God, this is it. This is so cool. And it was the diversity of the whole thing. It was the that creative part, but also the science and the agriculture and just the whole thing. There's so many possibilities. Did
you immediately find yourself having questions, maybe for the first time in your life you discover something and then all of a sudden you have thousands of questions about this particular topic?
Yeah, actually, like for me, like I was always so interested in the humanities, and then after that moment, I actually like preferred the sciences, like the biology, chemistry, you know, microbiology. Like all of a sudden, this whole world of the sciences opened up for me. It was a cool trigger, actually.
So, do you settle on a major at this point?
Yeah, I actually remember. Yeah, you know, just told them that I wanted to study winemaking, and it's a food science degree. Initially, when I was starting, it was a fermentation science option.
Okay.
But while I was going to school there, they changed it and they made available an enology and viticulture option. So I was actually the first student to get that chance.
No way.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. My professor was like, "Hey, this thing doesn't exist yet, but if you're willing to take a risk for a year or so, it's more than likely going to happen." So I did it and graduated on time, and
wow,
it was kind of cool.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Making beer on the side.
Yeah.
Did you give that up a little bit, or do you still make beer?
I don't, no.
You don't have time to make beer now.
I should. I mean, it's just, you know, we do enough cleaning in the winery up here. Like, I don't need to clean carboys.
No way.
Yeah.
You want to go home and clean, do other crap.
No.
So you graduate.
Yeah.
What's next for you?
Well, it was kind of cool. Like, my first job, kind of before I graduated, actually, was I was studying in a coffee shop, and some you know, nice looking lady next to me was like, "Hey, what are you studying?" And I told her, and she's like studying the same thing.
Oh.
And she'd actually been in the industry for a while, and so she got me my first job.
Really?
Yeah.
Who was this person?
Her name's Kelly Kidney.
Okay.
She's a winemaker up in the Willamette Valley.
Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah, Kelly I owe a lot to that wonderful woman.
Isn't it funny how when you it's not funny, when you open yourself up to like that, say hi to someone, strike up a conversation, the connections that you can make with certain people.
Yeah.
And then the paths those connections take you.
It's amazing.
It's fun to just think about, especially if you look back on your life and, oh yeah, I met this person and they actually ended up getting me this job. So what winery, was a winery you were working at?
Yeah, it's outside Corvallis. It's called Tai, and it's really old. It's been there since the 70s, or no, maybe early 80s. But they've been doing it for some time, and it really is just like a beautiful mom and pop farm. It's on a century farm. I mean, it was a century farm then, so they've probably been families. The Buchanans have probably had it for the last 140 years almost. And,
did you start as a cellar rat?
Yeah, just cleaning barrels, cleaning tanks, and then worked. Then after school, worked for a number of different wineries. I mean, I'm sure you know this, but there's this cool thing that you can do in the wine industry, and that's to like bounce around and do internships, and they're paid typically, but all over the world. So I went and worked in New Zealand, Australia. I worked in France. I worked in Napa, and I'd come back to the Willamette Valley because I really loved it there.
What about it?
The Willamette?
Yeah.
I think there was at least for the wine industry particularly, there was like a promise of potential and hope and ascendancy. You know, like there was something really exciting happening there, and to be a part of that was really cool. And I love Pinot Noir, and I love Chardonnay, and I love Riesling and Pinot Gris and Pinot Blanc, all these things that do well in this like, you know, fairly like warm but not cold or, you know, not hot environment. Rather.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Where did you work in France?
I worked in a little town in Burgundy, just north of Beaune, sort of the epicenter of Burgundy, in a town called Magny-Lavière for a little winery called Henri Naudin-Ferrand, and it's just...
That sounds lovely.
It was really wonderful. I mean, I could go on about like how I just stayed with this little family, like in this old stone building, and it was just the whole thing was very personal. Like harvest there is very different in a traditional sense. All the pickers would come from all over France because they have like a month break in France, like most people do. You know, they have like a month off a year, and usually is like August, September, so that coincides with harvest pretty well. And they would come from all over and stay there and pick and then eat and drink and sing and dance, and it was a celebration.
Sounds like my Saturday night.
So good.
Every Saturday night. But it's very much a like family style atmosphere where you were?
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you mean harvest is different there because people come from all over, they don't necessarily work at this particular winery?
Well,
or is it more of a celebration?
I mean, yes. I mean, like, it's like a celebration because these people have from all over. I mean, there was some folks from Marseille and Nantes and Paris and you name it, you know, all the whole part of France, and none of them were in agriculture, but like there's a connection to agriculture in France that's really interesting. You know, like we have that here, but it's not as, I don't know, it's not, there's the connection's not quite as tight. I feel like.
I gotcha.
You know, so you know, like it's not like people are like, God, I really want to go to Iowa to harvest corn this year. That, you know, that's what I'd like to do with my vacation this year. But people want to go, and you know, they get paid.
Yeah.
In France, so these workers get paid, and they're fed the entire time, and they're put up, and it's just I don't know, it's a lifestyle.
My grandparents grew corn. They grew all sorts of things in South Carolina. Corn being one of them, lima beans being another. And my grandma could outpick anybody, and she would offer me $5 to pick a bushel of beans. Do you know how big a bushel is?
I have no idea.
It's this like huge bucket. You know, I'm 10, maybe 11, 12, and I'd get out there for 5 minutes in the South Carolina heat, humidity.
Yeah.
And I was like, Grandma, I can't. And she's like, okay. And she'd be out there for hours.
Oh, man.
I know. And this, I mean, I felt like such a jerk now looking back at that. But
you learned something, didn't you?
I did. But corn, because you said corn, that was definitely a family thing. Everybody came and picked the corn, and then you put it away. I mean, you had to, because they had to have it for the rest of the winter. But
yeah, my mom's from Iowa, and you know, they would go eat tons of corn all summer. So that was my summer memory is like my mom buying corn like at least once a week.
Always corn, always fresh tomatoes and cucumbers on the table. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, it did not matter. Like, there were always plates of sliced tomatoes and cucumbers.
You're making me hungry.
I know. It's like almost lunchtime. Okay, so you're bouncing kind of all around the world, just studying, just absorbing everything you can about this industry.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, there's so many ways to do it, you know. There's so many ways to make wine. So I think it's really good, you know, no matter what you do in life, I think it's really good to get the broad perspective.
At this point, do you know you want to make wine?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%.
It's clear to you.
Yeah.
And you want to make wine in the Willamette Valley?
I never closed the door, you know. I mean, I'm here in the Rogue Valley.
Yeah.
But I knew that there was something there that I loved. But there was also something there that like I wanted to, you know, I still have that exploration gene, you know. I still need to get out and explore, and coming here it's totally different, and it's wonderful.
Where did you work in the Willamette Valley?
I worked a handful of places. The places that had the most kind of impact on me early on was Amity Vineyards, which is very old, but and then I worked for a guy named Robert Britton, who I worked for a lot of years. He makes wine for himself under Britton Vineyards, Winderley Wine Company, Fairsing Vineyards, De Lancelotti Vineyards. He sort of, we actually, while I was with him, we moved into this warehouse space and made wine for about 10 different wineries.
Wow. And
so we were, you know, creating wines from different vineyards, different styles, working with different ownerships. It was a really cool and dynamic experience.
Was it a custom crush type of facility?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not there, you know, there's some really great, you know, like Barrel 42, Quaddy North. Those guys make wonderful wines for a number of different people. It takes a ton of work, a ton of skill, and so I think that's a good environment to learn. And so I really appreciated that. And then after a while, I wanted to try something a little different. I went and worked for a little winery called Domaine Serene, which is a pretty well recognized winery in the
I would say pretty much, yeah. It's fairly well known.
Yeah. They're known.
Yeah.
So, but that was cool, and very different organization. Really beautiful wines, a little bit bigger in scale actually, but they do a larger scale well. But in the end, it just wasn't. It actually was a little too big, and it was a little too reaching. Actually, it was one of the cool things that brought me back to Burgundy occasionally. They bought a winery in Burgundy, in Santenay, in the southern part.
Domaine Serene did?
Domaine Serene did, yeah. It's called Chateau de la Craie. And we would go, a couple of us on the winemaking team would go occasionally to help guide the style there and make sure everything's aligned. So I got to kind of internally consult, which was really cool.
Fun.
Although if I didn't realize this, but traveling and working in jet lag, very challenging thing to deal with.
Yeah.
But overall, really cool. And so I learned a lot, but ultimately wanted to be somewhere smaller, somewhere really family oriented.
Okay, which we'll get to because you're kind of here at that in this moment. Domaine Serene strikes me as the winery that, and I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, that's the stereotype that non-wine drinkers have of a very intimidating place to go drink wine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of, I would say a lot of wineries actually in Oregon, because they're so beautiful.
Yeah.
And there's a big glass and you see other people doing this swirly thing and sniffing, and if you've never been in that environment before, it's like, what the hell do I do?
Yeah. No, I think you identified something really true and kind of, and in some senses problematic, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean,
Agreed.
like I think it's wonderful to be able to come to a space and like feel like you're transported somewhere.
100%.
And I think the places like that can do that. And it's nice to have nice things around you. But then you start to, somewhere, you cross this line, this fuzzy line where it's like, this is a little bit too much. And I think there can be a class divide that starts to happen there, which I don't love and appreciate. But that wine doesn't have to be that way, and I don't think it needs to be. I hope it isn't for people. You know, on the other end of the spectrum, it's sort of tangent, but like my brother's also a winemaker.
Oh.
Yeah, and he works.
Of course, y'all are twins. Of course he is.
Yeah, the forestry thing didn't work. But he kind of fell in love with it too. But he works for Union Wine Company, which makes the Underwood cans.
Yep.
And I love those wines, and I love the people there, and I love their mission, and I just like, I'm really hoping that there's some way that we can sort of, and we can all embrace each other's different styles and identities of wine, and bring wine into our lives in a more comfortable way in general, to get rid of that sort of snooty thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you think about it, wine's really one of the oldest beverages for humans, for humanity.
Yeah.
And I will say, I'll be the first to say, I like going to a fancy winery and drinking out of a fancy wine glass just as much as I like going to the mom and pop winery where they're coming in out of the vineyards and they're dusty and they've got their boots on, and you know, they pour something out of the barrel into a plastic cup. I'm down with both of those ideas.
Totally.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, I mean, this is farming, and this is really, you know, the fruits of your labor and everyone else's labor.
Well, I mean, one of my favorite things is like, you know, you go to most wineries in Burgundy, and it's like some old guy in like canvas green, you know, jumpsuit comes up and like, you know, just pulls out bottles with no labels on them. They just happen to know what it is and start pulling corks for you on a barrel in a dark cellar that's not very clean, and you know, his like grandfather would probably started it. It's just, there's something like, and it's not like it's not creating a facade. They're not like, it's not an image. It's just, that's just who they are. And so, yeah, I think seeing that is really cool. That's how Tailly was for me. That's how Amity kind of was for me.
Right.
Being in France, that was that as well. And then having that going to the other side and like seeing what it's like to create these like world renowned wines, you know, like it's a pretty interesting breadth to walk.
For sure. So speaking of connections and making connections, you were working with Robert Britton. Were you looking for something different, bigger, better at this point in your life?
After working with Robert?
Yes.
Oh, so it was interesting because I was like thinking about the connections, and I was like, well, his daughter Chelsea went to school with me, and I met her in Napa again years later.
Oh, really?
And her boyfriend at the time I worked with, and then she encouraged me to apply for this assistant winemaking job with Robert. So yeah, all those connections just like totally match up. And Robert's actually, we'll skip Serene for now, but that's how I ended up here. Is that
Right.
Robert had been
Right.
consulting for the Irvines, and he kind of whispered in my ear, like, well, had you thought about maybe Southern Oregon?
Were you working at Serene at this point?
Yeah, and
Okay.
I was kind of preparing myself to look for something else.
What were you doing at Domaine Serene?
I was one of these wonderful titles, associate winemaker. I don't know what that means still.
I don't know what my title means, so it's all good. You're in good company.
What is your title?
I am the executive producer of special projects.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it sounds
I
cool.
just do my thing. I work hard, and I leave it at that.
I think that's it, though, right? Like, I think, like, doing the work and creating and making things happen is kind of, that's all that really matters.
Well, there's people who look at me and say I'm a TV anchor, a TV reporter. I consider myself a journalist. So, I mean, I don't know. It doesn't matter to me. I agree. As long as you're doing the work and you're doing it with integrity and being ethical and kindness, I'm down. I'm down with all of that.
I like that.
So yeah, you're at Domaine Serene, but you are looking for something different. I mean, at this point, do you want to be like the main guy, the main winemaker somewhere?
Yeah, I think like the draw to create something, to ideate and like strategize and create, execute, like to be able to drive all those forces together. There's something really fulfilling about that that idea, and it certainly had been in my mind for such a long time. And as you do this long enough, you know where you would do things differently, and so now I get to make all my own mistakes.
For sure. So Robert Britton, who you had worked with, he's consulting with Doug and Dion,
Right.
and Irvine and Roberts.
Yep.
And he basically tells you, hey, this could be a potential job for you.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I think he thought. Well, I don't think he actually thought it was the right fit. But I don't know. I don't think initially he did. I think after seeing the connection and seeing how it all works out, and him realizing everything that I had picked up along the way, I think he knew that it actually was a perfect fit.
Interesting.
But initially, no. What's actually funny too, and I don't know if Doug and Dion told you this, but we met before I had worked at Domaine Serene.
You and Doug and Dion?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we met because they came up. It was their first consulting meeting with Doug and with Robert in the. So they'd come up to the Willamette Valley, and we had a tasting session together, and I was like I was looking at the plans for this winery and like hearing about the wines and kind of tasting the wines, kind of seeing there's potential there, and I actually did do one of those like, it'd be a cool job someday, and these people are awesome.
Phenomenal.
Yep. So yeah, there was like that little seed got planted actually a long time ago.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That is pretty cool. So this is kind of whispered in your ear. Do you meet Doug and Dion again? Like, do you come down here?
I came down. Yeah, the job was open, and I was.
What was here when you came down? Was it the tasting room? Wasn't here, was it?
No, there was a skeleton of two buildings.
Okay.
So these two buildings were 4 months away from being complete.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did Doug snag you?
Well, Doug offered me the job like within an hour.
That sounds so typical. And then Dion's probably like, whoa. We need to think about this.
I think so, yeah. And we hung out, we tasted, we had dinner, and then I went home and thought about it, and Doug was like, and I waited a couple of days because I thought, like, I can't just dive in. I'm not ready to move, am I? And so apparently Doug was fretting the entire time, is what I've heard. But
fretting. Were you doing like the, dude doesn't call the girl back 2-day wait, like the swingers, like the swingers movie, like you gotta wait a couple of days before you
3
call.
days, yeah.
3 days, yeah.
No, I remember that. Yeah, no, maybe, I don't know.
You had to think about it.
I had to think about it.
But I remember this story. After 2 days, you were looking for a place to live in the Rogue Valley.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was it was kind of hard, but yeah, I was stoked. As soon as I committed, as soon as I knew it was going to happen, it was 100%, and I'm 100% here. It's a wonderful place.
What about this vineyard do you love so much?
I don't know yet. I'm still like, I feel like I'm still trying to understand it. The soils are very different than what I'm used to, and I don't have a lot of precedent that I've seen. I've certainly never liked these. They're really like sandy sandstone derived soils. There's some granite. I don't know what that granite imparts. We're irrigating, which is different than in the Willamette Valley, because the soils are so thick and full of clay loam that they don't need to be irrigated. It's a little bit warmer, but there's also this breeze which kind of shuts things down a little bit. So we get into this really awesome sweet spot of like ripeness and freshness, without actually getting into the like overripe spectrum of flavors. And there's also this like cool thing that happens because our potassium's low. We don't actually see that potassium react with the acids, which will decrease your overall acidity later on. So there's some interesting stuff. Like there's some things that I think are pretty unique to this site.
Well, and for a lot of people who visit this site, it kind of throws them for a loop, because this is a view, for the most part, if you live in the Rogue Valley, you've never seen this view before. Yeah. We're
tucked back in this little, we're up against the Cascades, but actually like on a little butte called Dunn Butte. I don't think many people know that, but we're right above Emigrant Creek, and so you're really like isolated in this little valley up against the mountains.
Yeah, it's like I feel like you're right smack dab up against the mountains, like they're right there.
Yeah, and for me, like this looks like California, you know,
especially right now.
Right, sure. But like, I mean, you can see almost to California from here, you know, if we were high enough.
That's crazy.
But it's very different, but at the same time, like, I think for me, like, that's really attractive. You know, it's something it's a little bit of a unicorn, you know. Yeah, that's a funny story. So I was actually like the week.
Anytime someone says unicorn and starts giggling, I'm in.
So yeah, I don't know. This is a dumb story, but when I got a call to have the interview to come down, and I was at a friend's in the gorge with my girlfriend and with some friends there, and she's like into tarot cards. I'm not, but like I pull this like unicorn tarot card, and you know there's something still unicorn themed about this job. I know that sounds strange now that it's coming out, but
no, I think that sounds perfectly normal.
This is my kind of unicorn spot.
Yeah, I absolutely believe that. When you took on the job here, there were wines that had already been made. So are we if you're in the tasting room right now, we're tasting Vince Vidrine's wines.
We're okay, so ish, yeah. So the 2016s were fermented over at Barrel 42.
Okay.
They did a really wonderful job, but most of them came over here. So some of them got bottled there, but I was able to be a part of the, you know, kind of drive some of the blending process, drive the kind of finishing touches, and get it to bottle. And then most of the Pinot Noirs actually came over, and we blended those and put those in bottle. So their family, their stepchildren, who I love, you know, that's like a pejorative term, stepchildren, but they are, you know, like I love them, you know. I'm proud of them.
They're not quite yours.
Yeah, which is fine. I mean,
but
it's
a little
great.
Of yours.
I'm happy that they were like. I'm honored they're in my life.
I love that. You know JP Vallo. He was talking about one of his barrels that he's making for the barrel auction for Oregon Wine Experience, which we'll get to in a second. And he called it, at that moment in time, it was his teenager.
Yeah.
He says all of them are his babies, but this one was a teenager, a little tumultuous, a little confused.
I like that.
You know, it has to progress, it has to mature.
Yeah.
So.
That's a classic European thing to say too. Like, I mean, I know he's from South America, right? But like élevage, like the period of time that like That's what they call like when wine's in barrel. It's an élevage, which is like going to school in French. Like a élève is a student.
Okay. I feel like I'm still in élevage in my life. I'm a little tumultuous and not sure where my mission is. But the wines, so 2017?
17 was the first vintage that we processed, that we made here at the winery. And so those, we started, and the rosés. So like the 18 rosé, the 19 rosé, those were both mine. But the 17 Pinot Meunier we're now pouring here, which is really cool. And
that's
really
exciting.
Elegant. Yeah, it's been a joy, you know.
And there's planting going on too, or it's been ongoing.
Yeah.
What grows really good on this property, in your opinion? Right now.
Right now, well, I mean, both Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, and Meunier are what we grow, and I think they're doing really, really well. I have some rootstock preferences. I have some clonal preferences, but diversity is cool. So like taking different types, different clonal selections, gives us like more to work with to create something with more identity.
Okay.
What we've planted next door, we've planted some more in different Chardonnay clones. Some of them really interesting that I'm super excited about. A couple more Pinot Noir selections that I think are going to do really, really well here, and I'm excited about. And then we planted some more Pinot Meunier, a couple new selections there, and then a couple of selections of Gamay Noir, which I'm really excited about.
I've actually been recently getting into Gamay Noirs. They're fun.
They're fun. They're really beautiful. They're like, for those who like, I know this is like terrible. People would be like, really, you're saying this? But I feel like there's somewhere between, you know, like you get like the black pepper and meatiness like in Gamay Noir that's similar to Syrah, but you have a little bit more or less sort of red fruited elegance that you can get from Pinot Noir. It also grows in between the Rhone and Burgundy, Beaujolais, so it's sort of in between those areas. So it kind of it sort of makes sense for me. And then also I feel like we're in a slightly warmer growing region, and I think that clonal work, that variety will work really well in that climate.
Nice. I like that some employee just pulled up, totally bass bumping. Yeah, it was nice. He's excited to be at work today. I had a friend recently bring over a bottle of Gamay Noir, and I'm tasting it, and I'm like, you know, this really reminds me of like a nice Beaujolais. Like that's what it really reminds me of.
Yeah.
Well, lo and behold.
Bam.
I know. I felt really proud of myself. Like pat on the back.
That's awesome.
Like I kind of know what I'm talking about.
You know what you're talking about.
Just a tiny little bit. No, that's really exciting.
Who made it?
I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you know Sarah Garr?
Yes.
She brought it over.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
She's lovely.
She is lovely.
Yeah.
She is lovely.
I think she's a talented young winemaker.
I know. Look out, everybody. Yeah, she's on the rise with that. So, I guess moving forward here at Irvine and Roberts, are you here for a long time? What's your mission?
Yeah, I want to be here and see this place really succeed, really be on the map. I really think this site has a lot of potential. I think it is a unicorn.
How so on the map? Do you want people from outside the area to specifically come here?
Yeah, I do. I really want people to think like, gosh, where in the United States do they make really great Pinot Noir? And they're like, oh, well, the Willamette Valley makes really Oregon, but also there's this little spot in Southern Oregon that makes amazing Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. You know, that there's this they have to say, oh yes, there's also someplace else beside the Willamette Valley. And you know, I guess I'm realistic that you know, the critics and the writers will always glom on to certain places, but I think we can buck that trend.
I do too, and if we can change just a few minds, a few opinions on that, I think that would be amazing.
I think the way to do it is just really drive hard on quality. You know, I mean, if you believe it and you work hard for it, you know, I think we can achieve it. So.
Amen. Pinot Meunier, that's a grape that is traditionally grown for bubbles. Yeah. Yeah. And so, are there a lot of places making Pinot Meunier for like just as is?
No. In fact, I think once we plant, like now that we have 3 clones planted, it's probably the most diverse selection of planting in the U.S. Maybe, certainly in Oregon.
That's fun.
It's cool. Yeah, I never thought we'd be like Pinot Meunier specialists, but I think we will be, and it will never be. Well, I shouldn't say never. In at least in the near future, it's never going to be a huge part of our overall production. But right now we make a couple hundred cases a year. With this new planting, we'll have closer to 400 cases a year.
Wow!
Which is it's a good little chunk.
That's a good little chunk of change for sure. We're going to wrap up a little bit, but I want to get to Oregon Wine Experience, which is coming up fast.
It is.
It's right around the corner. Irvine and Roberts is making a barrel for the Founders Barrel Auction. And just to kind of recap, Founders Barrel Auction, kind of a nod to the founders of what at one point was World of Wine. And then it turned into Oregon Wine Experience and became a fundraiser. So a lot of wineries have decided to donate a barrel that you've created, something very special, to be auctioned off, and proceeds go back to Children's Miracle Network. Why did you guys decide to go in this year for a barrel?
We've been supportive of the Children's Miracle Network and Asante Foundation for a long time. Dion serves on the board. It's something that we believe in. It's something, and also we believe in the community. It's a broad. It brings so many people. It connects people, and it helps people. And we feel strongly of being a part of it. And I think I'm honored to get to contribute something to that personally.
Not to mention that OWE is FUN.
It is fun.
All capital letters. It is such a fun time. And the Founders Barrel Auction is actually my favorite event.
Yeah.
I love the idea that there's a winemaker, the winemaker at Abasala actually says his wine that he's making is a unicorn wine.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Can't get it anywhere else. This is the only place you'll ever be able to taste this particular wine, but probably the same for you, yeah?
For sure, yeah. This year we're making Chardonnay.
Really?
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah, I actually was thinking about being in that tent. There's so many people. It's summer. It's a little warm. I think Chardonnay is going to be really refreshing, but also it's we put something together that's a little bit more, it's fresh, but it'll also be powerful and interesting.
And I think it's nice the idea you're walking around tasting these wines. Let's say someone bids on a case of your Chardonnay. That's really the only time they're ever going to get that particular wine.
That's true.
Super exclusive.
Yeah.
Unicorn.
It's a unicorn.
Unicorn again. The trends.
That's right.
The trends in this podcast, and unicorn is one of them. I love it. Will you be out there on that Friday?
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Thieving from the barrel?
Yeah, thieving for sure.
Thieving.
Sharing the love.
Yes. A lot of people, they share a little too much.
Yeah, I thought you said fundraiser earlier, because it is definitely a fundraiser.
It is super, super fun. And again, that's the Founders Barrel Auction for Oregon Wine Experience. And if you want more information, you can go to OregonWineExperience.com. All right, let's wrap up and get to the final three.
Oh, yeah.
I prepped you on these.
You did.
And I'm so excited for the last of the final three, because you're a foodie and a wine and beer drinker and other things. Best advice you've ever been given, Vince?
See, this was the one that I had the most trouble with.
Good.
And I apparently don't listen to people's advice because I don't remember anything. And it was fun. It was fun because I was walking around this morning asking my colleagues, what's the best advice anyone's ever given you? And actually, one of them really was cool. Anna, my assistant, her father, Platon, who you probably know.
Oh, Jay Villain. Right?
From the Jacksonville Inn? Yeah. Platon, amazing man.
I would assume. I don't know any other Platons
If you haven't,
than him.
that would actually be a wonderful podcast.
Okay, done.
Yeah.
I'll call up tonight.
Yep.
Platon, I need you.
He would do it. His advice was really cool. It's and it goes right along with what we were talking about earlier about connections, and that's to always give people, respect and let them in, because you never know. I mean, you never know. Something might happen, nothing might happen, but always remember that you should give people that chance.
Interesting. And that's kind of how you are where you are right now.
I think so. So it was really cool to hear.
That is really cool. Okay. Well, shame on you for not following or remembering other people's advice. Like nothing from mom, dad, nothing.
They said not to get married. That was
okay. See, there you go.
Oh, my girlfriend will not be pleased about this.
We're just kidding. We're just kidding. Just kidding. You've lived in Southern Oregon how long now?
2 years, 2 months.
Okay, so and it's funny, the podcast I had interviewed just before then, he's also new to the Rogue Valley. So this question may be rough for you. I don't know. If you ever left this place, Southern Oregon, what would bring you back here? What would you miss the most?
Yeah, this one I was like pretty easily. I came to easily. Was like I live in Ashland, which I love Ashland, and I live downtown, and that was sort of the thing. One of the things that drew me to it was this like this small community with so much life that's literally tucked up against the wilderness, and you can walk out your door and there's mountain biking trails to run, there's skiing up if you can get high enough. It's like very few places that I know of can you walk out your door and have that, and as
right
someone,
at your fingertips,
right there.
Yeah,
I mean, like there's no excuse why I'm not out there every day. It's that close. It's a gem, and it's really something that I don't know where else I'd find.
Interesting. Okay, sir. Final meal, final drink.
Yeah. I mean, that could go on forever. But
go. You can have courses. You can have courses. Liz Wan literally gave me like a 12 course.
She just like pulled out a menu.
Pretty much. She's like pulled out her notes like she's at the Grammys and she has to have all these people to thank.
Yeah, that's awesome. She just like did like a Thomas Keller cookbook or something. So mine, like I really identified, like first would be like it'd be just some really fresh tomatoes and like a summer salad. But like the thing I'm really like I realized was like my mother's, my parents' like paella, but with like all the best seafood in the world. So like the best, like some of the scallops I've had, like the Puget Sound, like clams, mussels from New Zealand, Dungeness crab. I mean, just like all these things, like in the paella.
The most expensive paella
just
on the planet. Got it. Okay.
You can conceive of.
Okay.
Maybe oysters to start actually with some bubbles, and I would say like right now my like heart is with Chardonnay. So like with the bubbles, Blanc de Blanc, with the paella, just like Chardonnay, just really beautiful, elegant, like long and fresh and lush, and just that perfect Chardonnay that everyone kind of like is always reaching for.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Is this paella spicy at all? Does that have spice to it?
It has. Yeah, it's got to have the pimenton or whatever that. It's got saffron, of course.
Of course.
And it's got like Spanish chorizo.
Oh yeah, the dry. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Love that. So it's not like I'm a spice fiend, but like I wouldn't want it to screw up the fish.
Right. Of course. Yeah. Did your parents make paella a lot?
Yeah, they actually. My birthday was like 2 weekends ago, and they made paella. So maybe that's just fresh in my head. But like,
awesome.
It was just one of those like moments. I'm like, I want to hold on to.
For sure.
Yeah.
And you want it back.
Yeah, and it'd be great if my brother was there at the table too.
Right.
That'd be.
Well, you're twins, so it would probably be both of your final meals. I don't know. It'd have to happen like at the same time.
Right there.
Which is so morbid to think
about.
Yeah,
that's a sad way to go out.
It's fine. It's fine. We're talking about food. It's all good.
Well, my father, the doctor, the one who's like always talking about death, like this fits right in. It would be perfect. Awesome.
Well, thank you, Vince Vidrine, for contributing to the wine world here in Southern Oregon.
Thanks, Trish.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun chatting with you. And I also just love this wine community we have here.
It's great.
It's pretty awesome.
I'm honored to be here. There's so many wonderful people. It's a beautiful place to be.
Well, we're lucky to have you. If you're listening to this podcast on iTunes and you like it, please subscribe, rate, and review. It helps other people find us. You can also listen to this on Google Play, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. Check out video portion at ktvl.com. Just click on features and then off script. One more time, Vince Vidrine of Irvine Roberts, the winemaker. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks, Trish.